Our next discussion will be from the IDefine team as Geoff Rhyne provides some history of the organization, and Eric Scheef will join to outline research plan and opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Sid. So it's been a lot of information today, and it's really just incredible to be able to bring all of these experts and to be able to listen in on all the work that's being done in Cleefstra Syndrome, as well as the rare disease space as a whole. It's an incredible time. I'm hoping that we're catching these opportunities on this kind of wave. The whole rare disease space, to a degree, is exploding right now, and so it's really encouraging. I think we're coming along at the right time. We're leveraging a lot of different components within the community to be able to make progress. So just some background on IDefine today. And what we're working to do is to be a bridge. We want to help facilitate, we want to help distill down information and translate it into tangible results for our community. So we'd like to give you a snapshot of who we are, how we got here. And Eric's going to jump in and kind of give an overview of how we intend to move our initiatives forward. So as you flip through your brochure, the program that was put together, as I did before this, I imagine you were moved. It's hard not to be moved. When you look at all the experts that we have that are on the panel today, it's hard not to be moved by all the faces of the kids and the adults with Cleester syndrome. And when I look at it, I just see strength. I see potential. And it all starts with those that are living with Cleefstra syndrome. They have unbelievable strengths. Let's acknowledge them for being what they are. They're superheroes every single day. Our kids are superheroes. And the perspective that we've gained from them as medical professionals, caregivers, family members, it's invaluable. I know that there has been a fulfillment and an enrichment to our lives. And there's many times when I wish I could just go and see the world through the purity of my daughter's eyes. They have this unbelievable perspective. But perhaps it goes without saying, but I'm gonna dig into it a little bit, that our kids, our children and adults living with Cleefstra syndrome need us. They need our voice, they need our action. We're fortunate in that when we have challenges, we have the capacity to meet them if we so choose. We just have to have the courage to go for it. But when you're living with Cleefstra syndrome, you rely on someone else to be that strength and that voice that fights for you to address your challenges. And this is what I feel like our calling is. We must face the challenges for them. We must give them a voice. Whatever their challenges are, and God knows, our kids and our adults with Cleefstra syndrome, they have challenges, whether it's developmental delays, physical condition, regression. I know regression is at the forefront of so many of our parents' minds. We have to be that voice. We have to be that strength, that courage that leads to further developments and assistance. For me personally, our journey began February 26, 2019, Diagnosis Day. I think we can all remember that day very vividly. And it's where all of these kind of questions and concerns suddenly became more tangible. For me, it was almost a relief as opposed to a burden, because I immediately had something to chase. I wanted to get to work. I wanted to chase down the answers relentlessly. I'm very fortunate in that my wife has a sister with Down syndrome, and my wife's a special education teacher. And so it's kind of allowed us within our own family to harness our collective strengths and to accelerate pathways for support and opportunity. And I look at it as kind of a microcosm of what we're striving to do organizationally. And so when we received that diagnosis, which I know resonates with everybody, I viewed it through a lens of opportunity. Being Ella's dad, my child having Cleefstra syndrome, I firmly believe is an opportunity that was provided to me. I'm ready to take this on. We're built for this. We have the strength for it. I know that when I invest myself into something, and it's one of our core values that IDefine, is we go all in. In the face of the challenges, we're going to push forward. For what better purpose is there in our life? What better investment is there to make than the one in our own kids. So after a few months of looking around and trying to find resources, I ultimately reached out to Dr. Cleester on a Friday night at about 10 p.m. And I woke up Saturday morning and delighted that she had responded. And it began this journey for me to further understand the landscape and opportunities that existed to help Ella and others with Cleefstra Syndrome. Shortly thereafter, my wife and I went to BCH and met with the team. And I remember it really resonated that Dr. Saheen, Dr. Sid, Kira, they all came to lunch with us and sat down and were interested in our story and how they could help us. At that time, I knew we had a home. I knew that we had found a place that we could bring other families to answer some of the same questions that we had. Then in November of 2019, randomly, I received a LinkedIn message. My whole background is in hospitality and as a chef, and I got a message from this double board certified Harvard trained physician, and I was like, why in the world is this guy reaching out to me? Turns out Mason Harrell had flown and seen Dr. Kleefstra, and she said, you know, it sounds like with the progress you want to make, you should touch base with this guy who makes hot sauce down in South Carolina. So Mason reached out to me, and that began the journey of us developing this core team of 6 dads. And so we have Mason, we have Derek Reed, who's a business executive in the technology sector based out of Kansas City. And we all started talking, and we looped in Andy Klump, and Andy's background with Kids IQ Project, being one of the co-founders, allowed for this continuity, and also just kind of insights into HERA and some of the things that they had struggled with, some of the best practices, all the shared learnings that were developed. And Derek then said, you know what, at the conference in 2018, I fortuitously sat next to this guy, Eric Scheef, on the bus. And he was really, really smart. We need to get in touch with him. And so we did. And Eric is a scientist by training with a background in molecular biology, bioinformatics, and genomics. And so we were just building this really robust team. And the 5 of us, eventually we folded in another father, Clark Valberg, who's a CEO and co-founder in the business world in the tech sector. And the 6 of us dads started coming together on a weekly basis. We wanted to see what kind of opportunities we could pursue, which ones existed, which ones we could pursue, and then ultimately develop a plan on how to do it. And we realized we had a really strong team. We've talked in our webinars previously that we have this really diversified skill set, and that extends far beyond just this set of co-founders. As I've gone out into the community and talking to many of you, the reason we are where we are today is because the strengths of the parents within our community. It's unbelievable. And so thus far, we've experienced some positive traction. Considering we launched in September, right out of the gate, we raised some money. We're able to launch some new initiatives. And now it's about pushing that forward. Today's about pushing all that energy that we've collected and that we've analyzed over the past 12, 16 months and really pushing it forward. Today's a launch point as much as it is anything else. It's distilling down all this information that is out there, giving it to you, and then us deciding how we're going to move forward. And so we've surrounded ourselves with this team of experts. We've surrounded ourselves with incredible volunteers. You know, on our communications team, we have Paige and Derek Vanderlinden. We have Matt Lockwood. We have the Corey family from Australia. I know someone in the chat earlier referenced Australia, and we have the Corey family down there who did an incredible effort in helping us. And then we have Margot Metzger, who's helping facilitate today's webinar, but is responsible for that program you had in front of you. I mean, it's an incredible, tangible result of a lot of hard work. So now we have to figure out how we translate this into action. We're stronger together. We're building something really, really special, but we still have a lot more to do. So I'm going to share my screen now. Can you all see it well?
I'm sorry, I can't see it.
Let me see.
There we go.
Awesome. So this first slide says a lot about who we are. This is our website homepage. It's kind of our mantra, IDefine, right? We heard ID earlier as intellectual disability, but that intellectual disability is not our identification, which is also an ID. It's why we capitalize it in our name, is where we're going to take an action-oriented mindset of defining our future. And a dream's not big enough unless someone laughs at you along the way. And so we set out to say, we're going to change the world. We're going to change the world for those with Cleefstra syndrome and hopefully impact others along the way. So the picture here, this is Mrna, Derek's daughter, and it just encompasses what we view as the opportunities that exist. You have someone who's just looking out at all the opportunity, and now it's time for us to take action. You can see that our organization, we're committed to identifying life-changing treatments and cures for those with Cleefstra syndrome and other intellectual disabilities while building community. So we have three primary areas of focus. One is building out Cleefstra clinics. So we've heard it talked throughout today's conference about the Cleefstra clinic at Boston Children's, and that's our first step. And that's with Dr. Sid and the whole multidisciplinary team up there. It's going to be critical to have this coordinated care that we all long for, so that when you go to the doctor, you're not the first person that they've ever seen with Cleefstra syndrome. The second prong is accelerating research. So what can we do? What can we do to take the information that we're hearing about and seeing the opportunities out in the rare disease space? How can we assist in pushing that forward? And there's a lot of initiatives we can do on kind of a granular, small level as parents. And the last thing is building community and infrastructure. And so we want to build a sustained organization. We want to be here for the long haul. We don't just want to be a kind of a flash in the pan. As we had this incredible team, as I've referenced. There's 6 of us as co-founders. We have several on the communications team. We have this fundraising committee. We have folks reaching out almost every single day offering to help. So the Cleefstra syndrome clinics, the intent here is to take the information that's a little bit disparate right now and centralize it under one roof, right? That's going to help not only you, it's going to help your doctors, your care team, your therapists. All of that will be available to you, but we don't want it all kind of haphazardly floating out there. We want to centralize it. And then once we establish this center at Boston Children's Hospital, our full intent is develop regional international centers. And so it's just going to be the first one. But when we talk about registries and building patient population, understanding where people are, it's critical because we need to know, how many families do we have in Texas, and where does it make sense to put the next center, that we can branch out. Same with the question earlier about Australia. We've been in talks about putting something up internationally. And so it's all intended to improve clinical care for your children. And then the last point there is the development of kind of an international consortium. And that's not only going to help with clinical care, but it's going to help, to Dr. Sahin's point, where Fragile X, when they went into clinical trial, if we develop this international consortium, we can really develop endpoints that can be identified through clinical trial. And frankly, that's a little bit out of the realm of my comfort zone, and where Eric could be able to pop in and provide a little bit more color and context. So I will turn it over to Eric Scheef.
Wow, how do I follow that? Geoff, thanks so much for the passion and the introduction to what we're trying to do. So yeah, as Geoff said, I got this text message from Derek saying, "Hey, we're putting together a team to work on Cleefstra syndrome," and my response was just, "Okay, I want to work on that with you guys." It was the easiest thing once I got in touch with them, and it's just been so natural ever since. And so yeah, incredibly exciting project. So I'm going to cover what we're doing to start to spin up a research program at IDefine. And our big priorities for 2021 will be to assemble our scientific advisory board and put together a world-class team to help advise us, refine a research plan for what we feel we should do next to push development forward of possible treatments, and then begin making some targeted investments towards doing drug discovery. So that said, can we go to the next slide? So just to tell you where I'm coming from, I am a fellow Cleefstra parent. My son Isaac is 13 years old. He is, you know, a gentle, amazing soul, and he also can be very challenging, as I'm sure other parents will understand. So yeah, I am a scientist by training. My background is in genomics, molecular biology, bioinformatics. Bioinformatics, for those who don't know, is kind of the processing a lot of the data and information from biological experiments to try to get understanding. Currently, I'm actually in terms of my day job, I'm at Illumina, which is a genomic sequencing company. And when Dr. Kleefstra was talking about this next-gen sequencing and the ability to find new patients who actually have Cleester syndrome and have not yet been discovered to have it, and this new technology, that is what my company creates. And so I work on supporting the data analysis software that we create to help researchers process that data, that genomic data. So to get into drug development, and ultimately that's what our research will be focused around, be trying to move the drug development process forward. It's really challenging, and Dr. Syheen, I think, did a great job, you know, explaining how long it can take and how challenging it can be. And so, you know, our job is to compress that schedule as much as we possibly can, and make targeted investments in the research space to, on a preclinical level, improve that path. And so it's commonly talked about, and Dr. Syheen shows something similar, like a funnel, right? You have these different possible approaches that are in the funnel as options, and as you test them, you find that some just aren't going to work, and you gradually narrow them down and narrow them down, and at the end, if all goes well, you end up with a workable drug and a workable treatment. And so, you know, we're pretty early on in the funnel. We're kind of in the little white dots there. If you imagine those dots are possible treatments, and so we'll be looking to compress that and to winnow that and reduce the risk, and put ourselves in a position where we have some exciting leads that can then be potentially chased to a clinical trial. And so right now we're following a very deliberate process to assemble the right team in terms of an SAB with the right set of skills. And we are in the process of making invitations. And so we will gradually be discussing who has joined as we get those finalized and all the paperwork done, so to speak. The one person we can talk about right now that I'm really excited to have join the SAB as the first member is Paul Smith. So Paul also is another Kleefstra parent with a 4-year-old son, Edward, who also is a scientist by training, but most importantly, Paul is a drug developer by training, and he currently works at Insight as a lead for drug discovery. He's been involved in the development of 4 different drugs that have made it to FDA approval in his career. So, and he previously worked with the Kids IQ project, so has that background as well. So incredibly excited to have Paul join us. And obviously with Paul, every conversation I have with Paul, I know we're 100% aligned. We're both Kleefstra parents. We both want to help our kids. And it's already been a really productive relationship. And I'm so grateful to him for coming aboard. So thanks, Paul. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit, and again, Dr. Syheen did this great job of kind of laying out, you know, how do you intervene in rare disease? And I want to just give you a look. This isn't saying what we're going to do, but I want to give you a sense of kind of that there are options and there's a lot of exciting things happening. But first, to kind of take it back, you know, for where we are with Cleavester syndrome, and just as a reminder, you know, Cleavester syndrome is caused because you have a loss of 1 copy of EHMT1, which is on chromosome 9, and that can be from a deletion or from a mutation. But the net effect is that to some degree you have some reduction, right, in either the expression or the function of that gene. So you have some reduction in that gene being expressed either to mRNA or the protein being functional. So you sort of have like almost like a 1x condition, right, where you normally have 2x, you'd have 2 genes producing the appropriate amount of RNA, which is the carrier molecule, or the protein, which is actually the functional EHMT1. And the loss of that 1 copy interrupts that. And you can potentially intervene all the way along this pathway. And one of the things you can do is what we're doing right now. If you click forward, Geoff, which is what we do right now is we treat the downstream effects, right? So there's a lot of syndromic features that are all caused by this one ultimate challenge, which is this damage to one copy of HMT1. And so when you treat, if your child has seizures and you treat seizures, you're treating the downstream effects. There's also potential to do a little more targeted downstream therapies, as Dr. Nadeef talked about. And so there's a lot of exciting potential there, and that is absolutely something that we are interested in and will be continuing to investigate as an option. At the same time, there's a lot of excitement in the rare disease space around the fact that with rare diseases, unlike most common diseases, where common diseases you have lots of genes contributing, like heart disease, right? There's not one gene usually causing heart disease, and so it's appropriate to treat the symptoms. With a lot of rare diseases, it's one gene, and that means that it makes a lot of sense to do targeted therapies. And so Dr. Sahin already talked about the potential to do gene therapy and the pros and cons, and that's something we'll be investigating as an option. So that's pretty straightforward in the basic sense, very complicated to actually do successfully, but the idea being that you've lost a copy, so you're replaced, right? So that's replace what was lost. There's another, if you can click forward, another option we're considering is there's some new tech around mRNA compensation. So that would be to replace mRNA. So this is similar to, if you've heard of the Mrna vaccine, it's actually technology based around mRNA delivery. And there are companies that are interested in using mRNA potentially as a way to compensate for missing expression of genes. So sort of a temporary gene therapy almost. That's a very early stage in terms of what's happening with those companies, but it's an interesting area that we're keeping an eye on. And then the other possibility is that if you can click forward, is that you try to modulate either the transcript or the expression of the gene. And Dr. Sahin talked about the ASO technology. And again, that's a targeted technology that lets you modulate genes in a very specific way. And it usually is used to downregulate, but there are sort of tantalizing data out there that can also be used to upregulate, which would be what we would like to do with the HMT1. So we can kind of get more out of that single copy that is still in good shape. So all of these areas are interesting, and if you can just go back, Geoff, to the previous slide, and are provided here just to kind of give you a sense of that we have options, and I think we want to try to quickly narrow those options down as much as possible and identify the most promising candidates, and that'll be done on a preclinical basis in these model systems that you heard about today, and under the advisement of the SAB. So. Really excited to move forward with this, and it's going to be a challenging road, but I think there's so many. We're doing it this at the right time, as Geoff said. There's a great alignment between our understanding of biology, and there's a great alignment of what's happening in terms of biotechnology and these new therapies coming on. And there's a lot of investment going on in the community around the general sense of how do we do gene therapy better, how do we improve ASOs, et cetera. And so we're just coming in at the right time to take advantage a lot of this new tech. Looking forward to providing more updates as we refine our plan. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Eric. And I think you articulated it well, is that there's so much opportunity, there's so much momentum in the rare disease space. And so now it's, our objective is to define a new future. And as I referenced at the top, I love a good quote, and Nelson Mandela had said, "It always seems impossible until it is done." And so that's our challenge, that's our charge. We're pursuing what not long ago was thought to be unattainable. And the developments in the space are rapidly improving. The technology is improving, and it gives us just this immense amount of hope, despite the fact that there's a ton of work to do. We acknowledge that, but we believe that there is a pathway to be able to provide a treatment at some point. And so in order for us to chase these opportunities, we kind of need to have some really laser focus. And so I put down here relentlessly collaborative. And what we did at the end of the day, I've never ran a nonprofit before. I've never pursued a rare disease before. And so what we did for the first 12 months of the organization really was benchmarking. And we talked to Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. We talked to Rett syndrome leadership. We talked to the leadership for Angelman syndrome, which is an organization called FAST. And these are all folks that have made incredible strides in the space that we've been able to get their support to help us kind of craft and guide our energy to make sure that we don't make any missteps and understand best practices. And when you hear about, the windows of development being 3 to 12 years, we've heard about the Angelman's team making it in 3 years. So we certainly want to pick up the phone and talk to those people and figure out how they did it, and then try to apply the same practices to our own organization. The committee development and engagement, again, is a critical component, and there is a ton of work to do. This conference in itself has taken the bandwidth of so many people. And again, we're incredibly grateful, but for us to accelerate, we're going to need, a legion of people coming forward, and let's all kind of play to our skill sets and accelerate things by kind of breaking it down compartmentally and really leveraging our own skill sets to be able to push the collective forward. And at the end of the day, our goal here is to follow the science. So to Eric's point that we're building out this SAB, and I'm not going to be the one who is saying where we're going to be investing in. I think that would just be foolhardy. So what we want to do is collect the brightest minds across the world that are working in this space and working across these different modalities, bringing the experts forward, and just having all the information in front of us to be able to make really calculated and focused decisions about how we can help our kids, and what is the low-hanging fruit out there and what is the goal. I think there's definitely, at the end of the day, if we were to have everything our way, we want to cure, but there are steps along the way that could be very impactful as far as quality of life is concerned, where we want to help with regression. Again, that's a major pain point for the community, and we want to help there. So before we break and wrap up, I think it would be proper to acknowledge what we've done, where we've come, and also just share a moment of silence for the folks that we have lost. There has been some tragedies within the community. So we're going to break, but I'd like for everybody, just for the next couple of minutes, take a moment of silence, breathe in, appreciate, honor all those people, and we'll take a break at 1:45, and we'll see everyone back at 2 o'clock.